a world boss. And this boss looks pretty impressive, but you were noticing some similarities to other D3 bosses, right?
Yeah, just a little bit. You'll see later on, like in the clip, when it kind of does some summons, where like it summons some treasure goblins, kind of eerily similar to Greed from Diablo 3, where you take your puzzle ring and put that in the cube so that you could get this kind of like secret level. But yeah, it's a pretty big spectacle. Having a big boss out in the field with. I tried to count them. There's definitely at least 7 characters, but I think you can have up to 8, as they mentioned previously. There's the kind of the goblins running off. It saddens me that they don't try to chase them to kind of kill them to get the gear that presumably they would drop. But hey, we're focusing on DPS on the world boss here. And I think the other one cool thing that I noticed is it kind of feels a little bit like Monster Hunter-y, where at the start of the fight the boss isn't as beat up, it doesn't have as many scars, but kind of like over time you kind of see a little bit more like cuts and a little bit more bleeding from the boss. But yeah, just cool to have an open area where you can kind of team up with other players and kind of tackle a big boss, and get some hopefully good gear.
We're getting some PvP here, which is something they're kind of bringing back, right? It was pretty big in D2, but was absent in D3.
Yeah, like it's cool to see it come back. There's definitely a lot of folks that enjoy PvP. So don't know how it'll interact with what end game or like mid game looks like, or what kind of rewards you even get from it. But it does give that extra flavor of kind of builds and gear that you might want to use specifically for PvP that might not be necessarily good for PvE, but is catered to just fighting other players. Diablo timeline, but I know there's a lot of folks that enjoy the class, and we're getting to see kind of just some tried and true, right? Some corpse explode and kind of going through a dungeon with just a golem, which is interesting because the Necro is known so much for being a summoner class, and we're gonna see some variations of the Necromancer gameplay throughout this kind of first clip. We'll kind of let this play through a little bit, and then I can get into some of the other stuff in a little bit. Now we're out in the kind of like open world. Here, different class kind of build here. You have skeletal warriors, you have skeletal mages, what looks like maybe teeth from kind of Diablo 2 or a variation of bone spear, as well as some cursing going on. We don't get context in terms of like what exactly each of those skills are. The only thing that I saw through these clips that we got are just more about the different variations for the summoning, which is the primary core of a necromancer. But I can kind of break some of those down. So the skeletal warriors that are kind of out there right now are probably either skirmishers or reapers. There's three variations: skirmishers, defenders, and reapers. The defender, which is the only tooltip that we got through this kind of gameplay, is geared towards having durable shield bearers with 15% more life. You'll see some defender skeletal warriors later in the later part of this clip, but you can upgrade it one of 2 ways. One of the ways, every 10 seconds your skeletal defenders will negate the next instance of direct damage they would take. If you decide to want to sacrifice it, which is one of the 3 options, you'll gain 15% non-physical resistance, but you'll no longer be able to raise skeletons. The skeletal mages, there's 3 options. There's shadow, cold, and bone. For example, with cold, as one of the upgrades, each time your cold mages damage enemies with their primary attack, you gain 2 essence. If you want to sacrifice the cold skeletal mage, you'll deal 15% increased damage to vulnerable enemies, but again, no longer able to summon skeletal mages. And then with the golems, there's bone, blood, or iron. In this clip, you're seeing iron, so I'll just like break down what iron does. Iron golem will slam the ground and stun enemies, and every 5th iron golem attack causes a shockwave, dealing X% damage to primary enemy and enemy behind it. That's one of the 2 upgrades for the iron golem. And then if you decide to sacrifice the iron golem, you'll deal 30% increased critical strike damage, but you can't summon a golem anymore. I've never enjoyed the summoning aspect of necromancers, even though that's kind of what the class does. So it's kind of cool to have this passive ability of trading off your summons to make your necromancer stronger, essentially. But what we're seeing in this clip is you have the defender skeletal warriors that I mentioned, as well as Iron Golem. There's legendaries that they're not picking up, presumably to keep some of that hidden, although I know a lot of folks probably want to see what those are. And then you have either a bone spear kind of like variant where it is hitting the wall and then bouncing back and kind of making 3 bone shards, or like smaller bone shards. Don't know if that's an upgrade for like Bone Spear or Teeth. I'm not sure which one it is. That looks more like Bone Spear though. Or if it's kind of like a legendary effect that's like on one of the Necromancer's items right now on this specific character.
One thing to just note, a lot of that information you gathered from a build that's not final. So like some of that could change, so don't take everything as gospel that we're saying. But anyway.
Diablo 4 is the next generation of action RPG, melding monster slaying and loot collecting with a fully realized open world.
It's not for the faint of heart. It's gory and unnerving. It's creepy.
Diablo 4 is all about player choice.
It takes all of the pillars of a Diablo game and just expands them with all of the new features that people really love and appreciate in modern games. Whoever you see yourself being, you can create in Diablo 4.
It's important to include robust character customization because then I can play the fantasy that I want to play. It allows you to switch around your playstyle as well.
Everything feels very powerful and fun.
One of the really cool things about having an open world is your journey that you take throughout Diablo 4 is your own. There's no linear path that you have to follow.
We've got almost 150 dungeons in the game.
There's all kinds of surprises as you're exploring.
Strongholds are an enemy territory that you need to reclaim.
You might have a space that begins as a hostile area, but after you've cleared it out,
the evil in this place has been cleansed.
It now becomes a friendly town.
Sometimes it's a new town, sometimes it's a new dungeon. There's a whole bunch of rewards that you get, and you have a real impact on the world as a result.
No, you can't leave us here. They might come back any moment.
Local events are really cool little story segments that happen within the open world.
You'll just be running through the world and then a local event will pop up and you can choose to participate in it or get a group together and just wail on these like giant world bosses.
These are events that take a lot of people and you really have to work together.
Being able to see all the players on your screen, collaborating, trying to take this big monster down, it's epic.
It's so easy to create a community. It makes Diablo more of a social experience.
We've got fully enabled crossplay.
If you have an Xbox and your buddy has a PC, you're going to be able to group up.
Or you could play couch co-op. 2 people on a couch can sit there and have a great experience.
We've created specific zones where players can engage in PvP.
If you go there, you can start swinging away at people. But you're also opening yourself up to being swung at.
If you're like really, really good, the game actually marks you as like a champion on the map. You basically become a loot pinata and everyone wants to chase you down.
The last story mission is really the beginning of a whole different part of the journey.
Now you're set up for the end game, and that end game is rich with things to do that allow you to get more and more powerful.
Whether it's new items or new dungeons or new Paragon boards, every single time you come back to play Diablo 4, there's going to be new stuff for you to experience.
And it's something that we're going to support for years to come.
I'm really excited for folks to get their hands on Diablo 4.
Just to see millions of people really enjoying the different options.
Through the campaign,
Local events.
Couch co-op,
Endgame.
PvP, it almost doesn't end.
The dream continues to haunt me, old friend. It always starts with a journey to a distant land. There I find a city in flames, streets choked with corpses, unthinkable destruction. I witness senseless slaughter, brother against brother, pure hatred. And then, executions, agony, suffering surrounded me until my turn comes. They burn my eyes, break my bones. I awaken in terror. There's no one left to stand against them. But I know these dreams. They tell of the future. Hell is coming, brother.